Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Today, the star of the show is another one of the reels that Scott found at a flea market. This is the Olympic VS 1000. It's a Silver Series reel. It was made in Japan, circa 1970s, early 80s. Metal casing, everything that says Japanese about it. Oh boy, I'll tell you what, this is one of the hardest to turn reels that Scott has given me, short of one that just did not turn at all. So we're going to show you how to take this reel apart, how to service it, how to get it back out there fishing again. I'm just looking at the design on this, and boy, if this doesn't look like the Ryobi that I just serviced or some of the Daiwas. It's got that through handle, and it's got, I just did the Ryobi Silver Cloud SX4, and boy, this one kind of looks very, very similar in nature. We'll see how much similar it is. This has a twist and turn to collapse the handle. Right now it's not set very well. I thought it was twist and turn. It's just a full turn out. And you do not unravel or remove the handle by pulling this and turning it. This one comes out because there's a screw. This screw is very loose on this side, so I'm not sure just what exactly was happening with that, but we're going to start by removing the exterior pieces and parts. As we do, I'm going to encourage you to subscribe to my channel if you like the art of fishing reel repair, if you like to see how reels are serviced, maybe you have a reel yourself that you want to learn about how to do it and what the best practices are. Well, this will help you, and that subscription will help me and my channel as well. So I would encourage you to go ahead and do that subscription. I just got a note. I appreciate the comments that come in. I just got a note from someone that said that, well, I've awakened their inner gearhead. And thank you for that, and well, thank you for letting me know about that. It's appreciated. The idea behind the channel is to teach you to do it yourself, and I have a lot of folks that do send reels in for service and repair. That's wonderful. I use those as examples to show you. You're essentially looking over my shoulder as I do this service and repair on these. All right, I took this screw out and put it right back into the handle. That way I don't lose it. I use a parts tray. I put all my pieces and parts into that tray so that when I go to reassemble the reel, I know where it is. I'm going to remove the spool next. We'll service that one later, but for now we're going to remove that spool just to get a look underneath. There's a lot of old dirt and grease there, so I think I'm going to get a jump on this rotor. And boy, if this doesn't look almost exactly like that Ryobi that I just worked on. It's quite possible that these reels were made by the same manufacturer, and again, we'll find out a little bit more here. We're going to try and get these screws out. This is not always easy on older reels, so especially ones that are kind of bogged down, which kind of says that they haven't been serviced in a while. I'm going to use a penetrating oil, kind of let them work its way through. You want to be careful, of course. You've got metal in the metal side plate. You want to make sure that you treat these well, that you don't break these off. And as I take those screws out, I'm going to put them off to the side here. And putting them off to the side allows me to compare the size of the screw when it comes out. And if I notice that one is longer or shorter, I make a note as to what position that is in the side plate. And if they're all the same, well, no harm, no foul, right? Best practices here is to do this all the time, even if you think you know. That way, well, you don't get stuck later. Well, these three screws are all the same. So I'm going to take those and put those into my parts tray. And we'll pull off the side plate now if we can. And this is so similar to that Ryobi reel I just did that it's almost scary. A little bit of a difference, of course, not much. Here's why we're struggling with this reel. We've just got couple of decades worth of old grease sitting in there, and we're just going to have to mop that up. Well, this is the pin that holds the axle in. That just came out when we pulled everything, so we should be able to remove the axle shaft now. That came out easy enough. You want to mop down everything. So a lot of the reel servicing is centered on cleaning up the old, inspecting the pieces and parts, making sure that they're not damaged. If they are, you're going to need to replace them, and then just relubing and reassembling the reel. How do you reassemble a reel? Well, you take pictures on the way out So right now would be a good place to take a picture, notice the orientation of pieces and parts, and that's only going to help you later on when you go to reinstall if you get stuck along the way. There is no rotor nut up top. There is a little U-clip underneath here, and if you put a screwdriver or a little pick like I'm doing here, you should be able to remove that clip. A lot of times these reels fail because the clip gets worn or the slot in the rotor gets elongated, and it's just almost impossible to bring those back into balance. Right, I'm going to wipe it off with a paper towel first. We'll do a little spray of that penetrating oil. Somebody asked me what that penetrating oil is. That's the generic penetrating oil from Ace Hardware. I have no real favorite in terms of which product I use to degrease reels. They all seem to work very well. In this case, I ran out of the WD-40. To me, no problem. Ace Hardware, I happened to be in there buying something, whatever it was, and just reached over the shelf and grabbed their can of penetrating oil, and it works fine. Okay, so I'm just cleaning up the old stuff. You can see it on the cotton swab. There's been a lot of old stuff that's nested itself there. I have no question whatsoever that that's one of the causes for this being bogged down. There's some old grease on the pinion gear, which is part of the rotor. So we're going to take that off, and this is something you need to pay attention to if you have this kind of a reel. This is a steel bale wire that was coated with a metal coating, and it's chipping off. So you need to smooth that out, because if you don't, and you cast and you cast and you retrieve and you retrieve and you do all that good stuff, well, what's going to happen is that the rough pieces on the bale wire is going to abrade your line, and eventually it's going to cause it to tear or snap off. So make sure it's smooth. You're not going to change the discoloration. You may not even be able to get all of it smooth enough, but do your best, because that'll save your line later. All right, well, we sprayed the inner part here. There's no moving pieces and parts on that inner side, but there is a lot of dirt, and dirt is a cause of failure in fishing reels. So do your best to get that dirt out of there. If it's sand, by all means, go to whatever extent possible to get the sand out. This is just some old, almost looks like dust. One of the ways that you can flush this out is to take it to a freshwater faucet, tap, and just run a heavy stream of water over it. That'll get a lot of it out, but in this case, most of this stuff appears to be just old, as you can see, old dust and dirt that has been trapped by the grease that was in here, and well, that's what we got. I like to use paper towels on my work area. The reason for that is when I scrape stuff out like this, I can dispose the paper towel and not worry about transferring the old dirts and greases to the next project. So as I mentioned, we're going to teach you how to service fishing reels, teach you a little bit about the reels, and we're going to try and give you best practices for servicing those reels. You can implement those that you like, and if you have a different system, that's okay too. There's plenty of ways to go about fixing a reel, organizing your pieces and parts, where you start, where you finish. This just happens to be the way I do it. I'm not saying it's the best way or the only way, I'm just saying it's a way. All right, we're going to find my fishing reel oil. You want to put oil in the slot of the bail. This one's a dead end, you don't have to worry too much about that. As long as your bail is functioning, you do not need to take the springs off and look inside. Now, if this one was sanded, if I found a lot of sand in here, and if that bail was scraping every time I was doing this, well, then I would probably remove that and make sure that everything inside is clean. There's no indication of that. This also has a trip bail here that is what I call a bang bail. That bail is going to wrap against the top piece of this reel here, which is missing its little plastic cover, and that's how it's going to trip the bail back. But okay, this is done, except for putting a little bit of grease on there. We'll do that when we do the reinstall. We want to turn our attention then to clean out the case. You'll notice that there isn't any ball bearings in this reel, which is very similar to that Silver Cloud reel that I did for Ryobi. Again, there's some changes, some differences in design, and there's a lot of very similar pieces in the design as well. Which, if you're thinking about working on reels for friends, maybe you haven't gotten started yet, maybe you're a little intimidated by the thought of working on different reels, understand that a lot of the reels that you're going to work on are going to have very similar designs, even if the names of the manufacturers are different. You may find that, well, they're going to use the same kind of technology. The pieces will just look a little bit different. But in this case, we've got a crosswind arm that connects the axle shaft to the main gear. And that crosswind arm is going to move it up and down. As I mentioned, the Ryobi has a similar one, a little bit different look to it, but no difference in function. And what you'll probably amaze yourself with is if you can fix one of these, well, you'll get in a pattern where you can fix a lot of these. Sort of the same thing with an Abu Ambassador. When you open up an Abu Ambassador, it's going to be one of about 2 or 3 different designs. Yeah, there's some differences along the way. There's some other unique reels there, but for the most part, if you're working on an earlier one or a later one, Chinese made or Swedish made, for the most part, the designs are going to be very similar and you can move easily from one reel to the next. Alright, we're just going to finish the mop-up duty here, get the last of the junk out of the inside of that cavity, one a little bit more here. And I think we're going to call that one cleaned. Just one more time to get up through there, get the collar up. One thing to pay attention to, this is your override swing arm. There is a V-shaped spring in the cavity here. If you've opened up your reel and you find that there's a V-shaped piece of metal spring laying around that you have no idea where it is, this is where it belongs. The point of the V goes down below, the 2 wings come up top. Again, as I mentioned, there's similarities to a lot of different reels. A lot of reels of this era did use that spring. So if you find that that spring popped out, maybe you were just not paying much attention and you flipped this arm and all of a sudden it's shot out, well, that's where it belongs. How does that get held in? It gets held in by the side plate later. So it won't be able to pop out because the side plate will be pressing on these 2 tabs. Don't worry the issue, but that's where it belongs. I am not going to remove that. All right, I'm going to put a little bit of oil onto that arm, a little bit into that spring cavity. We've got one more piece that we need to clean up here. That piece is going to be the main gear. And this one I might need a chisel for, but I think we're beginning to see a pattern here. We know why this reel was as sluggish as it was, and that's all of the old greases have either congealed or evaporated, and that's caused the reel to be very, very sluggish. All right, I'm going to go back to my penetrating oil. And some folks ask me why I wear this latex glove. Well, this is exactly the reason for it. There's an awful lot of stuff on here, and to the extent that I can keep that stuff off my hands, well, that's kind of the goal of wearing that glove. Why don't I wear 2 of them? Well, I have a very hard time working with that glove with my right hand, so I figure half of a hand protection is better than none, and that's what I use. And by the way, it seems to turn out, obviously, if I'm grabbing the spray can with my right hand is out of the way of the spray, but my left isn't. This probably prevents more than 50% of the cleaning agents and the old greases and dirts and that from getting on. All right, well, we've cleaned up the main gear. You want to check the teeth now. You want to look at all of them, make sure that they're all crisp, that they're aligned. I just went through a pen reel where I had to replace the main gear. Check this side. Make sure all of the points of that are the same, that they're not worn out either. That's your main gear. One more piece to clean up then, and that's this side plate. And I guess Olympic gets an award for nooks and crannies. They have an awful lot of those here. And I have an awful lot of places where this all grease then just manages to hide. Do your best to clean it up. It's out of the way and it's gooey and it's glue and may never move in its lifetime again. But if you can get it out of there, get it out of there. There's a little shim washer that belongs on this cross arm, so I'm going to take that out right now. You'll notice there's no bearing, that this side case acts as a bushing. And I think, well, other than cleaning that ugly part off, and we're pretty much ready for a reinstall. I use the side of a screwdriver occasionally as a scraper. It doesn't damage the paint if you're careful, and it's effective. Alright, that's done. Pretty good stead all around there. Not sure what we got here. We got a little bit of dirt in here, so let's get that out while we're at it. And again, you're seeing that a lot of the real service is nothing more than just cleaning it up. Okay, we're good. A little bit of oil onto this anti-reverse dog. Take a picture. If you're going to play around with this anti-reverse dog, take a picture. Maybe some of you have this reel open and you're wondering how to get that back. There's a spring. It's got a hook on it. It's sitting on the top of this metal dog here. That spring comes down and it wraps around the post and it nests. You'll see a long arm traveling along that side plate there. That's where it nests, just in case you were wondering. This should go in and out easily. It is, and boys, I can make noise when we get this reel back out there going again. Speaking of going again, let's go do that then. I'm going to start by the rotor. I'm going to put our fishing reel grease on there. I use Penn Precision reel grease. You can use whatever reel grease you like, but please make sure it's reel grease. You're going to get the top as well as the bottom of this where it's going to ride in the case. If you wanted to, you could put a little bit of grease into that little section there. Just as I picked that up, I noticed that, well, I didn't get all of that, did I? All right. Now we can put the rotor on. Make sure that you can see the slot where that U-clip is going to go. I'm going to take the U-clip and insert that. And before you do anything, just give it a spin. Make sure it spins nice and easily. And that's certainly spinning a whole lot easier than it was. All right, we have our main gear goes next. Now there were two washers that were on the back side of this case. I'm guessing they're going to fit just like that on the main gear. So when we go to put the main gear in, let's just go do that. That's going to kind of keep it centered or trued to the side plate. Get a good amount of grease onto the stud where it's going to travel through. You do not need to put grease on these teeth. This is what's going to capture the anti-reverse dog. All right, with that we can go ahead and install that. If you want to make sure that it's running smoothly and nested properly, go ahead and turn the reel. Next up then, we're going to put the axle shaft in. We've already cleaned that axle shaft. Just a very light coating of grease on this. If you put more than a light coating of grease on it, it's just going to get squeezed out when it goes through this hole. That's going to be a tight fit. Bring that down. Now we have a kind of an arm bar here. We have the arm that's going to ride on the main gear, and we have the stud that goes through that. And put a little bit of grease into the channel where that's going to ride. There's a channel in the back here. That stud is going to ride in that channel. Put a little bit on there, but it's not much of a moving part. And then when you bring your axle shaft down, find the hole, mount the stud into that hole, and make sure that that stud goes into that groove that we just put a little bit of grease in, that big long, elongated groove right there. There's one shim washer that goes up on top, and that goes here. And you notice there's just a very little overlap onto that crosswind arm, but that's what's going to hold that in place. All right, here's your case now. This case should go on with this arm here inside that override. We're going to check it. When you put the case on, then you can flip it. What I'm trying to do right now is get that beak of the main gear to accept that, there we go, to accept that arm, the anti-reverse lever arm into that. As I said, you'll get a noise if you've done it right. Or some people might say you will get annoyed if you've done that right, because this is a constant clicker. You cannot have an anti-reverse and quiet that one. You can take it off. That's what the arm is. You can put an override there and crank smooth. But if you're running the reel with an anti-reverse, you're going to get a click, 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 click. So that's a design feature. It has nothing to do with something being installed incorrectly. And as I said, sometimes it might be annoying to tell all your friends on the pier or the beach or the boat that, well, you're working a fish on because you got a click, click, click going. All right, this is the last of the side plate issues, short of putting the handle on, and then we'll go up top. We'll show you how to service the drag washers in this reel. Olympic made a very nice product in the Japanese era. If you find them, you'll find them with a wide assortment of reel types, everything from the spinning reels that we're working on here. You'll find boat reels that were comparable to Penn, and interestingly enough, I just worked on an Olympic closed-faced bait caster. So yeah, you can find pretty much all of them. This one should go in a little bit smoother. There we go. I don't know why we were having a little issue there. When you go to put these screws in, make sure that your screwdriver matches the size of the slots. If you go in too small with a screwdriver and over tighten, you may butterfly them. If you butterfly them, well, you got to go find another screw. I would tell you it's probably nearly impossible to do that with this one right now. All right, when we did this initially, this handle was loose. Now the handle is doing what it should be doing. Oh, we got a nice smooth cranking one now. We're not fighting to turn that around. All right, last part then. Let's take a look at the drag washers here. My guess is these are either going to be plastic washers or they're going to be felt washers based on the type of reel. We've got the same issue here. We've got dirt in that channel, so let's again go to our old friend, the penetrating oil. Clean that channel out. These are top drag fishing reels. They always get dirt in there because when the line's coming in with the water, well, it's going to hit this soup bowl here and go right in there. All right, what do we have? We have a metal washer. That's the first of the tensioners. And then we should have a series of metals and plastics. And I guess the way this one's set up is first one in is the metal. Then we have that tension washer. Then we have the, I guess I had it right the first time. You have the tension washer goes in, then you put the metal in. Probably would have been good to take the picture there, but that's okay. Now it's a plastic washer. You don't service the plastic washers. They're self-lubricating. If you want to put a drop of oil in, that's fine. It won't absorb. Then we put that winged washer in. It's called an eared washer. It goes in both slots. Put another one of those in. I'm just wiping off the dirt on this as I put that in. It's self-contained and there's no issues with it other than some tarnish. Then we put that clip back in. There's a groove in the spool that accepts that clip. Anchor one side of it. Just kind of work it around with your fingers. That will set it in, make sure that all 4 points are in that groove. That goes on now. Grab our drag adjuster knob, and it'll be about time to tell Scott to go take this one fishing. Look at that, what a difference. What a difference, a little cleanup, some oil, some grease. There's the bang bail I was talking about. It's going to come over here. It's going to hit this right there. Now there would have been a plastic cap on this one. That's missing. But as you turn, it's going to fire and close the bail, just like you've seen there. I'm supposed to kind of show you it in real time. That's how it works. And that's it. That's your Olympic VS 1000. It's got a relatively small gear ratio. It's 3.64 to 1. That's small by today's standards in a spinning reel. Most of the spinning reels you see are going to be in the 5 to 6 range. But that's okay. Lots of torque in this one. It'll pull up Davy Jones' locker. Very strong reel, very strong design, and ready to go fishing again. Well, I hope you've enjoyed that. To our first responders and essential personnel, thank you for everything it is that you've done to keep us safe. To all, please stay safe, stay well, and stay watching. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Have a great day.